Well, here we are with part 2 of the quilting. First of all, I'm going to show you what I'm going to be using. You can get quilting pins if you've ever seen them, and they are shaped. Get one out for you. They're shaped. Can you see that? Like an old nappy pin. And yeah, so it goes in the fabric easily, and it's got room for the fabric to sit. I bought this backing for the tilde one, and I'm going to use it as my binding as well, because this is rather jazzy, and I think a bit of plainness would be good. So that's what you need, and because these are small, you don't need very much. What are you going to quilt it with? And this is what I really like. It's the Orifil cotton number 12, and they do the most gorgeous colours. They really do. I keep that in my little, yeah. Oh, here's a yellow. As you can see, it's just like, well, it's like about 2 or 3 strands of, and it just embroidery silk. It just goes through the fabric beautifully, and that's really what you want, something that's going to be easy on your hands. You can also use a King Tut quilting thread. It's a little bit more wiry. That's really like a cotton. Well, the other is cotton, but it's very thicker and smoother. This is thin, and using it for top stitch, it says. I think this is very good for the machine, but it's nice to quilt with by hand as well. You get some nice variegated colours, and yeah, it's lovely. Here you've got a Gutermann, and you can see it's quite wiry. I used this for a long time. It's quite wiry. It's very strong. Gutermann quilting thread, good value, 100% cotton, 200 meters. And you can see how it's nice. It's good. Here's another one, Gutermann. As I say, I've used those for a long time. And then, of course, you can go the other end of the scale, which is what I'm doing at the moment. And I'm using a Steph Francis stranded silk. There's 12 strands in that. It's variegated. You can get larger ones, smaller ones. And this is a perle, a cotton. I love them all, the colours on that. So there we go. There's some choices as to what you want to use for quilting. There was one other thing I wanted to say. I'm going to put a photograph in here of a quilt that I did, and I used wool wadding. It gives a lovely loft, but the thing with it is so light. It's easy to throw. It's not at all heavy if you've got wrist problems. It goes round you like a dream. I got it from, I'll put it on the screen. You know what I'm like when I'm talking on camera. Anyway, I'm going to now get the wadding out that we've got, cotton and the poly, what's name one. And I'll come back when I've cut it out and laid my quilt on the top. So here we are, bedroom floor again. I've smoothed out that top, and I've left about 3 inches around the quilt. I'm going to cut that excess off so that I've got a nice bit to play with, because as you quilt, it's sort of, you need that round the edge. You don't cut it to size. And I'm going to keep smoothing, smooth and smooth. Dashing away with a smoothing iron. Everything has to be smooth. You don't want any wrinkles on a quilt. Flat as you can get it. Keep smoothing. I turn it over. I've smoothed that, but it's all gone. This is why people like to use the spray. They'll spray that and it will stick. But not for me. I can't breathe in that spray smell. There we are. That is going to be good enough. And what I do is I work on a small bit at a time. So I'm going to fold that up and I'm going to get out the crease just of that little bit. I'm just going to turn that little bit over and I'm going to start here. Now, how should we quilt? What I want to do is get my quilter's masking tape and I'm going to go from point to point, from point to point, from point to point. Am I? That's a thought I could do, or I could do circles. I did have that idea. Let me just see what you think. You can do it with a plate or cup and saucer. There's rather a lot of, movement here, and with the leaves, and we could do different size circles. What do you think of that? I think that would be quite fun. Okay. And I'm going to do I'm going to do circles because this is all squares or oblongs, So I shall draw around that lightly. And what shall I use? Well, or the blue. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Well, of course, we've got blue on the back, haven't we? A pale blue. We've got the green. Do you know these silks? I almost don't want to use them because I love them so much. Oh, that's pretty, isn't it? Do you think that's nice? I think I'm going to go with this one. Righty-ho, I'm going to skein it up. And, shall I go with one of these for ease? Because I want you to be able to see it. And I think you would be able to see that. Okay, I'm going to go for that just for ease because I'm filming. Right, I decided against the circles, but that gives you some ideas if you fancied it. This is all smoothed. The back is smoothed. I'm going to pop in a few pins just where I'm going to be sewing. Which is going to be up to here. Smooth away, smooth away. I've got my cutting mat underneath. If you haven't got a cutting mat, then put something on your table. You don't want to scratch your table. Now we're going to turn this over and see what it looks like on the back. Not too bad. Can you see that? No wrinkles. Little one there. So I would take that out. Smooth that right out and pop that back in. So this is what our aim is, to get the back smooth and the front smooth. I can't do that for the whole quilt because as I quilt, it moves. I think we'll find that that's all okay. That little bit, that's what I'm looking at. This little bit. So I'm going to use the quilter's tape for ease. So we want to bury our knot. If we come up away from where we're going to start, put our finger on it and pull it through. Okay, now I'm not going to do small stitches. I hold my fabric underneath with my hand. I can feel if there's a crease or it's smooth, and with a rocking movement I come up. I'm doing stitches that I can see. I want to see my stitches. I'm not doing all those small little quilting stitches, 12 to the inch and all of that. This is, we want to try and get them even, but you know, it doesn't matter even if they're not. It doesn't matter. You're holding the 3 pieces of fabric together and you're sewing them together. Make sure there's no wrinkles. I can feel that, and I'm pushing it with my hands. There we go. So I'm just working on this bit here. This is all smoothed. I keep smoothing this out. If I was to pin that whole quilt, by the time I've quilted this bit, I would need to, for me, I would need to move all the pins. I know. Other people probably do it differently. So there we are. There's my first quilting line. I'm happy with that. Shall I just carry on? I think I might. I think it'll look good. It'll take the eye, as I'm going across, it'll take the eye away from the length. So I'm going to carry on. So I'm going to hold my hand underneath. I'm going to do a rocking movement. If the stitches aren't all the same length, it doesn't matter. We're modern quilters now. We're doing what we want, what we can. Our hands will let us for a start. My hands won't let me do what they used to do. On a table, I find it helpful. I've got somewhere to rest my arms, somewhere to rest my hand underneath, and lift up the fabric. I like a long needle. You can do one stitch at a time, as easy as that. There's no rush, just take your time. There we go. I'll take this off. What shall I do? I could do V's. I could put my tape there and come back and just do V's. Look, meeting a point Honestly, the world is your oyster when it comes to quilting. These is nice, isn't it? I like that. But I'm going to stick with the lines because you know where you are. So this is one more line, and then I'm going to smooth it around, check it all. Make sure that's all right underneath. Yeah, that feels all right. And I'm going to do that. Last bit of the line. Okay, I'm going to end it there because that's where I have pinned to, this little square here. I'm going to wind my thread round my needle, push my needle in the sandwich, not right to the back, bring it up, put my finger on it and pull, and I've got a little knot there. If you find an easier way, if you just want to do a little back stitch, this is your first quilt, do what keeps you comfortable. And on the back we have a little row of stitches, our first quilting row. That's going to show up nicely on the back there. And of course, if you wanted to do it by machine, this quilt isn't too big to get it underneath, but I've never been happy with what I've produced on the machine. I don't know, I can't, no, this is, I like this look, and I like doing this. I think don't spend too long. We've just been, I finished where I was, and we've just been out for our walk round the block. That's long enough for Pete at the moment. And I come back and do a couple of rows. Twirl the cotton round my needle, put it back in, push it away, put your finger on the knot and pull it through. Oh, just one more line this side. I'm putting it up against that seam and that seam. I come to the middle here, that's all right. That'll do me. Okay, so I've got up to here just by smoothing, sewing, smoothing, sewing. And really this was quite roughly by the time I got to here. And so I've been smoothing right to the edge, and I put in a couple of pins there just to hold it, if you can see there, just to hold it while I work outwards. And that is what you always do. You never work inwards, you work outwards. So that's where I am with that corner. This side has been done. So I'm taking this line off here, putting it on this point here. You can judge it. You can see when it's straight. You can draw a very faint pencil line if that's what you'd like to do. But I am using this and getting it the best. There we are. So that line. And so then I've got 1, 2, 3 more. And you know, you can do as much or as little as you like. I'll come back and show you when I've done this. So I've done the quilt. It didn't take me long, on and off during the afternoon. I wanted to just show you these two though. Here's one I did. Well, I've got the label, and this is how important a label is. When would I have done this, I thought to myself, and why would I have made this? And it's called Be My Baby, hand-pieced and hand-quilted using Lois's dress fabrics. That's Tommy's mum, Lois, my granddaughter, with love from Mum, because I did this for my daughter, July 2000. But as she says to me, Mum, I've got so many quilts. Will you look after this one? And I'm happy to. So I did this in 12-inch squares and then stripped, what we call stripped the squares together. I stitched 1/4 inch, put that quilter's tape 1/4 inch around the piece, and then 1/4 inch around that piece, and then you get every piece outlined. I think you can see that clearly. Be My Baby, yeah. 2000, so this is 24 years old. I stitched along the, you get a little stencil or you can draw it, and did a little rope along. This was, well, it still is, this is my favourite block, and it's one if I'm showing people how to quilt, I start them off on this one. You've got to match the points. You can use 4 of your favourite colours. This was the first piece of quilting fabric I ever bought, so I obviously had a bit left over from that. And can you see there? I've quilted. I've gone along that 1/4 inch tape, moved it, gone along, and I've quilted 1/4 inch all the way along. Not with those big stitches I've showed you today, but with small stitches and stitches that you can't see. That's how I wanted it. I did it in the white and then a line along here outlining that. So there's several. Oh, here's another one. And here again, I've used a stencil to do a little outline. I think there's a stencil on that. Let's have a look on the other side. This is what I mean by it shrinks 5%. You get this wrinkly look. So I've done these in a blue. You can see it. But the rest I've done in the same cream as the backing. So you just get that rippling effect. Let's open it up. There's the card trick one I showed you. I left those plain, but I did a round in the 1/4 inch. So you're getting all these different textures. And kaleidoscope. I liked using calico back then. I think calico's lovely. If you get a really good calico, not a stiff one, but you can see the quilting on there, makes it feel like it's going round, but just around the edge on these ones. So that's, I just wanted to show you that. And then this one, turn around for you. This one is little embroideries, small embroideries, and I just sashed along, and then I had fabrics that I just made into, I forget what they call it, is it like piano keys, just the odd bits all sewn together. It looks very effective. But I wanted to show you, what's the point? I didn't want to quilt all in here because it would take away from the embroideries. So I stitched in the ditch, as we call it, just in that seam that we've made. All the way along, I stitched in the ditch. And there it is on the back. This I've done on a brushed cotton, and yeah, you can see where I've just gone and stitched in the ditch, and it's come out like that, similar to what we've done. So the wild is your oyster, really. I'm going to put a picture up here of a quilt I've got on the other bed, and I can't manhandle it all off at the minute. So I'll just take a little picture of the edge I want to show you and put it up here. Again, that was a stencil I used. Just draw lightly round with a pencil and go over it. It's very relaxing. And you can't really go wrong because you've drawn on your quilt very lightly and you just do little stitches. Now, this is where we are. If it's your first quilt, which I'm showing you, little stitches might feel a bit too much. So big stitches is fine. It depends on what you want to do. So here's my quilt. I've finished it. There's no creases. It's done in lines. And the back, I must admit, in real life, it isn't creased. But on the camera, it's quite hard to show you. This is a beautiful fabric for the backing. It's a Macawa Essentials, and it's #1, and it's so smooth. That's what you want when you choose fabric. You want something that's not too open, something that's easy for your needle to go through, because you've got 3. This is quite a fine one, and the wool that I talk about is very easy to go through. When you think of wool, you think of a blanket, but it's just as light as cobwebs, so I could really recommend that. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here, and I'm going to come on and just say cheerio so you see my face and see I'm a real person, and we'll talk about it then. Here's the quilt. You can see the quilting there. It looks quite effective, I think, going across the way. And then on the back, it's a bit calmer. Yeah. So my next video, if I put it up there on me, if I put it up there, that just comes to my ankles, and that's up here. So it does wrap round me beautifully when I'm sitting on a chair. It's not overwhelming at all. I can't take my jumper off. I must say it's been a success. It's not scratchy. I had a question, was it scratchy? No, when you first put it on, the very first time, I would say it feels like wool, But this time it is so soft. Look, it just wears in with you. So I must say I do love it. Well, that's if you've watched my previous episode. If you're just watching the quilting ones, you won't know what I'm talking about, but I've just knitted this, and I'm not keen on the rowan. Well, I said I wasn't, but I am now. It's a loose knit. I think it's not a double knit, it's not a 4-ply, it's a sport weight. So yeah, I can't take it off. It's not scratchy, it's so warm, but boy, is it lovely for summer because it's so light. Anyway, I mustn't get on to that. So what I'm going to do is, my next video is going to be showing you how to do the binding and how to do the label. So I hope you tune in for then. And till then, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.